So, I gave birth and then my uterus fell down. Okay, it didn't fall down, but I've had a uterus prolapse, which basically means the same thing. It hurt a lot, and I did feel kind of gross. But the biggest problem was that I've wanted my uterus out, which turns out is apparently not completely my own decision to make. The perks of being a woman, I guess. Yay. Quick disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, obviously. I'm not an expert, I'm just telling my own story. Why? Because I had no idea that this was even a thing. And at the time, there wasn't much information to be found, because mainly nobody talks about it, so I did. In March 2020, I posted this glorious selfie on Instagram, straight out of surgery. The caption read, "Apparently giving birth isn't always this super magically flowery, just keep breathing, no problem thing. More like pooping a watermelon." Which fucked up my pelvic floor. To this day, this post has by far generated the most feedback in my Instagram history. Women from all over Switzerland, Austria, Germany write me in my DMs asking me how I fixed this, how I feel today, and if I have any regrets, because they suffer from exactly the same. And that is why I've wanted to talk about this very private matter on this very public platform. So let's dive into it. In 2019, I gave birth to my son. A few weeks later, I felt a bit weird, which isn't too surprising because my vagina was a battlefield. When I went to my doctor, he told me that I've had a uterus and bladder prolapse, which apparently is quite common and very often sorts itself out without women even noticing. But I did notice it, and spoiler, it didn't sort itself out. Instead, it got worse. First, it felt like having a very full tampon inside of you all the time. I was very uncomfortable, to say the least. But then over time, walking around or even sitting down, I always felt like something might fall out of me, not to mention
everything hurts and I'm dying.
But my doctor said to give it some time, so I did. And while doing that, I googled and I came upon a few results, but all of them were concerning elderly women having this problem, which didn't feel so great. But what I did learn was that one way to treat this was through surgery. It's called a hysterectomy, which basically means to remove the uterus. And I thought,
ooh, that's a bingo.
I was completely fine having no more than one child. And by this point, my uterus was nothing more than a wisdom tooth or an appendix. It hurt. And I didn't need it to survive. I just wanted the pain to stop and to live life normal again. I just wanted to get rid of it. But that's where things got kind of tricky. Or let's just say batshit crazy. My doctor was clearly not up for it, so I went to another one. And this doctor asked me if I was sure, which would have been completely fine. But he didn't ask me once or twice. He asked me several times, "Are you sure? Because you won't be able to have children after." Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. But I was sure. But what if you want more children? I didn't. Hell, even if I wanted to, I couldn't even sit down without being in pain. How on earth was I supposed to make another baby? But what if you change your mind? By this point, I honestly thought,
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
But then came the kicker. What about your husband?
What? Okay, fine, I'm cool, I'm fine.
That is just it. I can have boob implants as big as I wanted, or remove every single hair on my body with a laser. But as soon as it comes to my ability to give birth, suddenly I can't make my own decisions anymore. And people have to have a say, even if I'm in pain. Which is exactly what tons of women have to deal with. And it's not only with hysterectomies, but also if a woman, God forbid, doesn't want to have children and get her tubes tied.
Okay, no uterus, no opinion.
Look, I'm aware that doctors have to ask questions. And they, of course, have to protect themselves from lawsuits. And speaking of, there are laws to be followed. In Switzerland, where I'm from, you have to be over the age of 18. And if you're younger than 30, there is even a psychological evaluation to make sure that, or try to make sure, that you don't regret this. It's a bit weird. Just like the reasons friends of mine and women online get to hear from doctors who refuse to do this surgery. They never do something like this for women under 30. Or they only do it if a woman already has 2 children. Or even only if a woman already has a boy and a girl. It's completely nuts and most of all, sexist, especially when they ask whether a man you may not have even met yet might one day want to have children with you. So the opinion of a completely hypothetical person is more important than mine. Noted. And for people to say that you can't just get rid of an organ for no reason, sure, it is a big surgery that comes with its risks. But what about women who suffer from endometriosis or something else that hurts them? And also, isn't it a reason if you don't want to have children? I mean, yes, you can use birth control, but aside from a ton of side effects, no birth control on this earth, including condoms, is 100% safe.
Condoms only work like 97% of the time.
What? Well, they should put that on the box!
They do.
No, they don't! Well, they should put it in huge block letters!
Look, I get that, and I really want to empathize this. This is a very personal decision that isn't taken lightly. But I mean, even if I one day might regret the irreversible consequences of this, then I just have to deal with this. But at least it was my decision. In my case, I found a doctor who said exactly the right thing. My problem wasn't life-threatening, but if it bothered me, that can be changed.
Thank you!
I still had to go to physical therapy for a few months, which unfortunately didn't do jack shit, apart from my physical therapist and I having a few laughs while she had her fingers on some very intimate muscles of mine. And after almost a year of literally walking on eggshells, I finally got rid of my uterus. Now to the aftermath. I stayed for about 4 to 5 days in the hospital and I was in pain, mostly up here whenever I took a deep breath, which apparently has something to do with my diaphragm. But don't ask me something about that, I'm not a doctor. All I know is that I wasn't allowed to lift anything heavy for several weeks.
I can put this down, right? No, I just...
Which was kind of difficult because I've had an almost 1-year-old boy at home. But my husband and family were a huge help. And when anything failed, I just did everything like changing diapers or feeding on the floor. Today, I'm just as happy with my decision as I was back then. I fortunately didn't have any complications. I do have 4 tiny scars, 2 of which I don't even find even if I look for them. And I still have to get regular pap smears because I still have my cervix and my fallopian tubes and my ovaries. All in all, I'm almost the same as I was before I got pregnant. Like, I do sometimes feel a little something. Like people who feel their knee when the weather changes. But I can live like before. I can exercise, I can have sex, whatever you want. And the absolute jackpot in all of this is, I no longer have my period. So that's that. And I have to admit, I wasn't really sure if I should do a video about this because it is kind of embarrassing. But then again, so what? I wish I would have known about this before it happened to me. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't have been thrilled either, but at least I would have been a little bit more informed. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them in the comments. But again, don't ask me anything about the medical side. And by the way, I am aware that there are other ways to treat this and that there are women who've had very different experiences or even negative side effects. And there are women who feel less of a woman afterwards. So I can only speak for myself. And personally, I feel just as feminine as I did before. And I just wanted to get this out there so that if someone who suffers from the same might feel a little better.